The Great Hall of Concordia Prime had hosted 1,000 important meetings, but none quite like this. Representatives from every major power in the galaxy filled the curved seats, their various forms creating a rainbow of alien physiology. At the center stage, the Empire's military director stood beside a holographic display of their latest weapon. "Behold the Graviton Disruptor," they announced, their crystalline body refracting the light into patterns that signified pride. "It can collapse a star in 4 minutes." The assembled delegates murmured their appreciation. The annual military capabilities exhibition always brought out the best technology each species had to offer. It was part show, part warning, and part diplomatic dance. Everyone wanted others to know what they had, but not exactly how it worked. The collective went next. Their swarm consciousness projected images of nanobots so small they could slip through molecular bonds. "These can disassemble a dreadnought in under an hour," the speaker said through their translation device. Every atom separated and catalogued. Even the ancient Dominion seemed impressed, though their kind rarely showed emotion. When their turn came, they demonstrated a missile that could crack dimensional barriers, allowing strikes from parallel realities. "Defense becomes meaningless when the attack comes from a universe next door," their ambassador stated. Then came humanity's turn. Ambassador Sarah walked to the stage with a simple data pad and a smile. She was younger than most representatives, having served only 3 years in her position. The other species barely hid their condescension. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council just 50 years ago, stumbling into faster-than-light travel through what most species considered a mathematical accident. Their territory was small, their fleet modest, their technology unremarkable. "Thank you for allowing us to present," said, her voice clear through the translation system. "Our presentation is titled Applied Human Engineering Philosophy." A few delegates shifted in their seats. Philosophy seemed out of place at a weapons exhibition. Started with something simple. A video showed human soldiers using devices that produced intense sound waves. "This is a sonic weapon," she explained. "We took sound, which most species use only for communication and entertainment, and weaponized it. These frequencies can incapacitate, disorient, or in high enough intensities kill." The director made a dismissive gesture. "Acoustic weapons are ancient technology. We abandoned such primitive tools ago." "Of course," agreed pleasantly. "Let me continue." The next slide showed various applications of light. Lasers that could cut through steel, blind sensors, disrupt communications, mark targets, measure distances, and deliver precise energy to destroy incoming missiles. "We weaponized light across every spectrum we could access," said. The audience was polite but clearly underwhelmed. Laser technology was older than most of their civilizations. But kept going. She showed pressure wave weapons that crushed internal organs without leaving external marks, temperature weapons that could freeze or superheat targets, biological weapons derived from Earth's natural diseases, modified and enhanced, chemical weapons that exploited specific molecular reactions to create everything from choking agents to nerve toxins. The room grew quieter. Each individual weapon wasn't remarkable, but the relentless progression was starting to create an impression. Electromagnetic pulse weapons that fried electronics, gravity manipulation tools that could increase or decrease local gravity to crush enemies or make them float helplessly. Radiation weapons across every band of the spectrum, from radio waves that cooked from the inside to gamma rays that poisoned at the cellular level. Pace increased. The slides came faster now. Cyber weapons that turned an enemy's own computers against them. Psychological warfare techniques that broke morale and turned allies into enemies. Economic weapons that destroyed nations without firing a shot. Cultural weapons disguised as entertainment that shifted beliefs and loyalties. Mathematical weapons that cracked codes and predicted enemy movements with frightening accuracy. "We weaponized time itself," said, showing how humans used strategic patience and generational planning as tools of conquest. We weaponized information flow. We weaponized social structures. We weaponized logistics and supply chains, turning them into both shields and spears. The ambassador leaned forward in her seat. Her species had existed for millions of years, and in all that time, they had never seen anything quite like this. These weren't advanced weapons. These were basic, fundamental forces and concepts that every species knew about, but apparently only humans had thought to weaponize so thoroughly. We weaponized weather, continued. Images showed humans seeding clouds, creating artificial fog, generating lightning, and redirecting storms. We weaponized geology. Earthquakes triggered by precise underground detonations, volcanoes stimulated into eruption, landslides started at strategic moments. We weaponized biology beyond diseases. Insects bred to carry sensors or toxins. Plants genetically modified to grow in patterns that spelled out messages or blocked roads. Bacteria that ate specific materials, dissolving enemy equipment while leaving everything else untouched. A delegate raised a tentacle. Ambassador, this is comprehensive, but surely there are limits, things your species doesn't turn into weapons. Smiled and advanced to the next slide. That's an interesting question. Let me show you more. She displayed human art used as propaganda weapons, music that carried hidden messages or frequencies that affected mood. Dance used to pass coded information. Architecture designed to funnel enemies into kill zones while appearing purely aesthetic. Fashion that concealed armor or weapons. Food and drink laced with everything from truth serums to slow-acting poisons. We weaponized language itself, said. Ambiguity used to create confusion in treaties. Words chosen specifically to mean different things to different cultures. Silence used as a tool of intimidation or information denial. The presentation showed human children playing war games with toys, sports that trained combat reflexes and tactical thinking, educational systems that taught military history alongside mathematics, entertainment media that glorified warrior culture and prepared each generation psychologically for conflict. Every human vehicle is designed with military conversion in mind, explained. Our cargo ships can become troop transports in hours. Our civilian aircraft can carry weapons with minimal modification. Our cars are designed on the same principles as our tanks, just lighter and cheaper. She showed human infrastructure. Roads that could be quickly blocked or destroyed to slow invaders, bridges with built-in demolition charges, power grids that could be shut down in sections, water systems that could be poisoned or drained, communication networks with military override codes hidden in their architecture. We weaponized our entire food supply chain, continued. Crop diseases that target specific genetic lines, famines created through market manipulation, nutritional dependencies created through trade that become leverage in negotiations. The military director stood up. This is absurd. You're claiming your entire civilization is designed around warfare. No, corrected gently. I'm showing you that our entire civilization is designed around the principle that anything can become a weapon if you're creative enough. Let me give you practical examples. The next videos showed humans in survival situations. A soldier creating a spear from a stick in 30 seconds. Another making a weapon from a belt and a rock. A third turning a plastic bottle into an incendiary device. A fourth using a pen to disable an attacker. We train every human soldier to weaponize their environment, said. Any object, any substance, any situation. There are documented cases of humans using keychains, coins, sand, water, rope, cloth, broken glass, and their own bodies as effective weapons. She showed military operations where humans had weaponized fog to hide movements, rust to destroy enemy equipment left exposed, rats to carry diseases into enemy camps, and simple boredom to erode enemy vigilance during long sieges. We weaponized standardization, said. By making all our equipment use the same parts, we ensured enemies couldn't use captured supplies. We weaponized bureaucracy by creating rules so complex that enemies bogged down trying to understand them. We weaponized our own apparent weakness, making enemies underestimate us until too late. The room had fallen completely silent now. Every delegate stared at the human ambassador with a mixture of fascination and horror. Brought up her final slide for this session. It was a simple text document, a quote from an old human military manual. Assume any object, system, concept, or phenomenon can be weaponized. If we haven't figured out how yet, we will. The ambassador's voice carried across the hall, grave and steady. Is there anything your species considers sacred? Anything you won't turn into an instrument of death? Met her eyes. That's an excellent question, Ambassador. The answer is complicated and it leads directly into part 2 of our presentation. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. We'll reconvene in 3 days. I recommend you use that time to verify what I've shown you. Send your intelligence services to human space. Check our history. Investigate our current capabilities. Then we'll discuss not just what we've weaponized, but why. And more importantly, what it means for all of you. The session ended. Delegates filed out in unusual quiet, already composing urgent messages to their home governments. In 3 days, they would learn that the demonstration had barely scratched the surface. What had shown them was just the mundane physics and chemistry that every spacefaring species understood. The truly frightening part was yet to come. 3 days passed too quickly for the Galactic Council's comfort. Intelligence reports flooded in from every major power, and they all confirmed the same disturbing truth. Everything Ambassador had claimed was real, documented, and somehow worse when seen in full context. The Empire's spies had observed human military academies where cadets competed in creative exercises. Students were given random objects and 60 seconds to turn them into weapons. The winners weren't those who created the deadliest tools, but those who found the most unexpected applications. A hairpin became a lock pick, then a pressure point striker, then a short circuit creator. A shoe became a club, then its laces became a garrote, then its sole became a cutting edge. The collective's intelligence network had infiltrated human entertainment media and found something unsettling. Human children's cartoons taught basic tactics. Human video games trained reflexes and decision-making under pressure. Human sports developed combat-relevant skills disguised as recreation. Even human dating taught negotiation, deception detection, and alliance building. The Dominion's analysts had done something more subtle. They'd studied human language patterns and found layers upon layers of strategic ambiguity built into every diplomatic communication. Humans said things that meant different things to different listeners. They made statements that were technically true but practically misleading. They used tone, timing, and context as weapons just as surely as they used bullets and bombs. Now they gathered again in Concordia Prime's Great Hall, and the atmosphere had changed. The condescension was gone, replaced by wary respect and growing unease. Ambassador took the stage again, her expression serious. Thank you for returning. I trust your investigations were enlightening. Several delegates made gestures of acknowledgement. The director's crystalline structure had dimmed slightly, a sign of deep thought in their species. Today I want to explain the philosophy behind what you've seen, said. Because understanding what we do isn't enough. You need to understand why we do it and how we think about it. She brought up an image of Earth rotating slowly. Humanity evolved on what the rest of the galaxy classifies as a death world. Our planet tried to kill us in every possible way. Predators hunted us. Prey fought back when cornered. Plants poisoned us. Weather froze us or burned us. Earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, droughts. Even other humans were a constant threat. The image zoomed in to show various Earth ecosystems. Jungles where everything was either poisonous or carnivorous. Deserts where water was currency. Arctic regions where exposure meant death in minutes, oceans filled with creatures that saw humans as food. We learned a fundamental lesson early, continued. Everything is either a resource or a threat, and the difference is entirely about perspective and creativity. A rock is just a rock until you need a hammer. Then it's a tool. Then you realize it's also a weapon. Then you realize it's also a projectile. Then you understand it can be sharpened, heated, or combined with other materials to create even more tools and weapons. She showed human history in rapid progression. Stone tools became bronze weapons. Bronze weapons became iron plows. Iron plows became steel swords. Steel swords became factory machines. Factory machines became tanks. And every step of the way, humans moved seamlessly between tool and weapon, between creation and destruction. We call it dual-use technology, explained. Nearly every human invention serves multiple purposes, and one of those purposes is almost always combat-related. We can't help it. It's how our minds work. We see a new discovery and immediately ask two questions. How can this help us, and how can this hurt our enemies? A video played showing a human kitchen, pointed to various implements. Knives for cutting food, but also weapons. Forks for eating, but also stabbing tools. Pots for cooking, but also clubs. Fire for warmth and food preparation, but also for burning enemies and their supplies. Even the table itself is potential cover in a firefight. The representative made a sound of distress. You're saying every human home is an armory. Every human home is whatever it needs to be, replied. That's the point. Adaptability. We don't see fixed categories. We see possibilities. A civilian ship isn't just for cargo. It's a potential troop transport, or a missile platform, or a ramming weapon, or a decoy, or a dozen other things depending on what we need. She showed more examples. Human farmers who could become soldiers in days because their skills transferred directly. The same precision needed to plant crops worked for placing mines. The same planning required for irrigation worked for siege logistics. The same animal husbandry knowledge that fed a nation could be used to spread disease among enemy livestock. We weaponized domestication itself, said. Horses that carry riders into battle, dogs that guard and attack, pigeons that carry messages, even bacteria and viruses that we've learned to culture and deploy. The presentation shifted to show human psychology, displayed studies on human training methods, showing how quickly humans could be conditioned to kill and how that conditioning could be reversed, how humans used ritual and ceremony to prepare warriors mentally, how they used music and chanting to coordinate attacks, how they used fear and anger as focusing tools. We weaponized our own emotions, said quietly. Rage makes us fight harder, fear makes us faster, love makes us protect others fiercely, grief makes us seek revenge. We learn to trigger these states deliberately, to use them tactically. She showed meditation techniques used to calm soldiers before battle, breathing exercises that lowered heart rates and steadied aim, visualization methods that improved muscle memory, mental rehearsal that prepared warriors for violence before it happened. But we also weaponized the emotions of our enemies, continued. The slides showed psychological operations, propaganda that demoralized opponents, rumors that created paranoia, displays of force designed to terrify, acts of mercy calculated to confuse, seemingly random attacks that created patterns of fear. The director stood again. This is beyond comprehensive. This is pathological. You've turned your entire existence into a potential battlefield. Yes, agreed simply. Because that's what our existence was for hundreds of thousands of years. Every human alive today is descended from ancestors who survived by being better at violence than everything trying to kill them. It's not just our culture, it's our evolutionary heritage. She brought up genetic studies showing human predisposition toward pattern recognition, threat assessment, and creative problem solving. We evolved to see threats everywhere because threats were everywhere. We evolved to turn anything into a weapon because we needed weapons constantly. We evolved to cooperate in warfare because tribes that worked together survived while tribes that didn't died out. The next section covered human innovation in warfare specifically, showed how quickly humans developed new weapons in response to new threats. Chemical weapons emerged within decades of industrial chemistry, nuclear weapons within years of understanding atomic physics, cyber weapons within months of connecting computers into networks. We don't develop weapons as separate projects, explained. We weaponize each new field of knowledge as we discover it. Mathematics becomes cryptography and code breaking. Biology becomes bioweapons and genetic engineering. Physics becomes everything from bullets to bombs to energy weapons. Psychology becomes interrogation and persuasion and manipulation. She showed human research facilities where scientists worked on projects with both civilian and military applications. Medicine that healed wounds but could also target specific genetic markers. Energy research that powered cities but could also create directed energy weapons. Materials science that built better homes but also better armor. The line between civilian and military doesn't really exist in human thinking, said. It's all just knowledge, and knowledge can always be weaponized. Every human university teaches things that have combat applications. Every human laboratory works on projects that could be turned toward warfare. The ambassador's voice carried a note of something that might have been horror. You're describing a species that cannot conceive of anything without imagining how to kill with it. Nodded slowly. That's accurate but incomplete. Let me show you the other side. The presentation shifted dramatically. Now it showed human peace movements, protests against war, treaties that limited weapons, agreements to ban certain types of warfare, international laws about conduct in combat, organizations dedicated to humanitarian aid. We weaponize everything, said, but we also know when not to use weapons. We understand that just because we can doesn't mean we should. We've learned, painfully and over thousands of years of killing each other, that the ultimate weapon is restraint. She showed human military doctrine about proportional response and rules of engagement, training that emphasized de-escalation and non-lethal options, laws that punished war crimes and excessive force, cultural values that honored warriors but celebrated peacemakers more. This is what makes us different, continued. Other species develop weapons to use them. We develop weapons to not have to use them. The more dangerous we make ourselves, the less likely anyone is to attack us. The more ways we can hurt you, the less we actually have to. The slides showed human history again, but focused on deterrence. Nuclear weapons that were never used after the first two. Chemical weapons stockpiles maintained but not deployed. Biological research that could have ended civilizations but didn't. Cyber capabilities that could have collapsed economies but were held in reserve. We call it speak softly and carry a big stick, said, or peace through strength. The idea is simple. Be so well-armed, so thoroughly dangerous, so comprehensively deadly that no one wants to fight you. And then, having established that, choose not to fight. She looked around the room at the assembled delegates. Every species here has been in an arms race for centuries. You compete to build better weapons, and that competition drives more competition. The build graviton disruptors, so the build better nanobots, so the develop reality fracture missiles, and round it goes. His voice grew firm. Humanity looked at your arms race and realized something. You're all going to destroy yourselves eventually. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually someone will develop something so powerful that using it once will end everything. And then someone will use it because that's what weapons are for in your philosophy. You build them to use them. The room was absolutely silent now. Every delegate understood where this was going. We're showing you our capabilities for a reason, said. And that reason is not intimidation, though I'm sure you're intimidated. The reason is to make the arms race obsolete. She brought up her final slide. It showed a simple equation, mutual assured destruction piece. How do you compete in an arms race against a species that weaponizes reality itself? Asked. How do you outbuild a civilization that sees every object, every concept, every natural law as a potential weapon? How do you outthink people who spent their entire history turning everything they encounter into tools of death? The director's voice was quiet. You can't. Exactly, agreed. You can't. None of you can. And that realization should terrify you except for one critical fact. She paused for emphasis. We don't want to fight you. We want you to know that we could fight you with literally anything in existence so that we never have to find out what happens if we do. She let that sink in before continuing. In 3 days, we'll have our final session. I'll explain what humanity proposes to do with this revelation. But I want you to think about something in the meantime. We're not the strongest species here. We're not the oldest or the most advanced. But we might be the most dangerous, simply because we never stop thinking about danger. The question is, what does the galaxy do with a species like that? The session ended. This time the delegates left even more quietly than before, each one contemplating the same unsettling thought. Humanity had just declared themselves the most thoroughly weaponized civilization in known space, and somehow that declaration felt less like a threat and more like a warning. A warning not against humans, but against the entire concept of the arms race itself. In the corridors outside, conversations were already starting. Alliances were being reconsidered. Military budgets were being questioned. And everyone wondered the same thing. What would humanity propose in 3 days? What could possibly come next after a revelation like this? The answers, as it turned out, would be even more unsettling than the questions. The final session began exactly on schedule, but the atmosphere in the Great Hall had transformed completely. Where there had been pride and competition before, now there was uncertainty and anticipation. Every major power in the galaxy had sent not just their ambassadors but their military strategists, intelligence directors, and in some cases, their highest leaders. Ambassador walked to the stage one last time. She carried no data pad today, just herself and her words. The simplicity somehow made her more formidable. 3 sessions ago, I showed you what humanity has weaponized. 2 sessions ago, I explained why we think this way. Today, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do about it, and what we propose the rest of the galaxy should do as well. She began with a question. Why did we reveal all of this? We could have kept our capabilities secret, maintained our appearance as primitive newcomers, and surprised you all if conflict ever arose. That would have been the smart military strategy. So why did we show our hand? The ambassador spoke up from her seat. You said you wanted to make the arms race obsolete, but I still don't understand how transparency accomplishes that. Because the arms race depends on uncertainty, replied. You compete because you don't know what the other side has, so you try to build better and better weapons just in case. But what happens when you know exactly what your opponent has, and you know you can't match it? The representative's translation device crackled. You surrender. No, said. You stop competing. You realize the game is over and you look for a new game to play. She gestured broadly at the assembled delegates. Every species here has been locked in escalating competition for centuries. The developed graviton technology, so the rush to counter it with nanotech. The create dimensional weapons, so everyone else scrambles to find defenses. Round and round, faster and faster, more and more dangerous. His voice grew serious. And where does it end? Eventually, someone develops something that can't be countered, something so destructive that using it once destroys everyone. And because weapons exist to be used in your philosophy, someone will eventually use it. Maybe in desperation, maybe by accident, maybe through simple miscalculation. But it will happen. She pulled up a holographic display showing human history. This happened to us. We developed nuclear weapons, and for several decades we stood on the brink of extinction. Two power blocks, each with enough weapons to end all life on Earth multiple times over. We called it mutually assured destruction, and it almost destroyed us several times through accidents, miscommunications, and near decisions. The images showed moments when humanity had nearly ended itself. Computer glitches that were almost interpreted as attacks, radar shadows that looked like incoming missiles, political crises that came within minutes of launching civilization-ending strikes. Each time, humanity had pulled back from the brink by the narrowest of margins. We survived by luck and restraint, said, but mostly luck, and we learned a lesson that we're trying to teach the rest of the galaxy now. The arms race is a trap. The only way to win is not to play. The director made a frustrated sound. Easy to say after you've won. You've just demonstrated capabilities that make our weapons look like children's toys. Of course you want us to stop competing. You've already established dominance. Shook her head. We haven't established dominance. We've established absurdity. Think about what I showed you. We weaponize sound, light, pressure, temperature, biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, psychology, economics, culture, language, and literally everything else we encounter. Does that sound like a sustainable or sane approach to existence? She laughed, and it was not a happy sound. We're not showing off. We're showing you what happens when a species gets stuck in survival mode for so long that they can't turn it off. Every human advancement gets weaponized not because we want to, but because we can't help it. It's pathological, it's exhausting, and it's something we desperately want to change. That admission seemed to shift something in the room. The delegates leaned forward, suddenly seeing not as a threat but as something more complex. We're proposing something radical, continued. We want to end the arms race by weaponizing peace itself. She let that paradox hang in the air for a moment. Here's what humanity has realized. You can't out-weapon us. We've demonstrated that thoroughly over the past 3 sessions. But you know what you can do? You can weaponize things we haven't thought of. Every species here has unique capabilities, unique perspectives, unique ways of seeing the universe. They understand gravity in ways we never will. They see molecular interactions we can barely detect. The perceived dimensions we don't even have words for. Smiled. So here's our proposal. We share our defensive technologies with you, all of them. Every way we've learned to protect ourselves, we'll teach you. And in exchange, you share your unique perspectives on with us. Not to build better weapons, but to build better defenses. The representative sounded confused. You want to help us defend against you? Yes, said simply. Because if everyone is so well defended that attacking becomes pointless, then no one attacks. It's mutually assured survival instead of mutually assured destruction. She pulled up a new display showing a proposed structure. We call it the Galactic Defense Collective. Every member species contributes their unique defensive innovations. They teach us how to defend against graviton weapons. We teach you how to defend against the 1,000 ways we've learned to weaponize mundane physics. They teach everyone dimensional shielding. They teach counter-nanotech measures. The director was listening intently now. And offensive weapons. We all keep our offensive capabilities, replied. We're not naive enough to think everyone will suddenly become peaceful, but we stop the arms race. We stop competing to build bigger and better ways to kill each other. Instead, we compete to find the most creative, most effective ways to protect ourselves and each other. She showed diagrams of how it would work, shared research facilities, joint training exercises focused on defense rather than attack, open exchange of information about threats and solutions, regular demonstrations not of weapons but of defensive systems and strategic deterrence. The goal is simple, explained. Make the galaxy so thoroughly defended that attacking anyone becomes strategically impossible. Every species knows every other species can hurt them badly, but also knows that every other species can defend themselves effectively. The cost-benefit analysis of warfare becomes so unfavorable that peace becomes the only rational choice. The ambassador spoke carefully. This is essentially weaponizing deterrence on a galactic scale. Exactly, agreed. We're taking the principle of mutually assured destruction and transforming it into something constructive. Instead of everyone having enough weapons to destroy everyone else, everyone has enough defenses that destroying anyone else becomes impossibly difficult. She pulled up case studies from human history. We've tried this approach in small scales on Earth. Nations that extensively fortified their borders often avoided conflict simply because attacking them wasn't worth the cost. Alliances where everyone knew everyone else's capabilities led to long periods of peace. Information sharing between potential adversaries reduced miscalculations and accidents. The presentation showed proposed timelines and implementation strategies. Phase 1 would involve sharing basic defensive technologies and establishing communication protocols. Phase 2 would create joint research facilities and training programs. Phase 3 would formalize the defensive collective and begin coordinated galactic security operations. But there's something more important than the technical details, said. There's a cultural shift we're proposing. We want the galaxy to adopt what we call creative defense thinking. Instead of asking, how can I hurt my enemy? We ask, how can I make myself too difficult to hurt? She showed examples from human martial arts. We have fighting styles based entirely on defense and redirection. The attacker's energy is used against them. The defender doesn't strike back so much as make striking them pointless. We want to apply that principle at the galactic level. The director stood. This is an extraordinary proposal, Ambassador, but it requires trust that I'm not sure exists in this room. Trust can be weaponized too, replied with a slight smile. We start small. We verify. We build confidence through demonstration and transparency. And we recognize that the alternative is mutual destruction eventually, either through deliberate warfare or through an arms race that spirals until someone makes a catastrophic mistake. She gestured to the assembled delegates. Look around this room. Every species here is spending enormous resources on weapons that they hope never to use. Weapons that mostly serve to make everyone else build better weapons in response. It's economically draining, politically destabilizing, and existentially dangerous. His voice grew passionate. We're offering a way out, not through surrender or dominance, but through a new kind of competition. Let's compete to be the most secure, not the most deadly. Let's race to build the best defenses, not the best attacks. Let's see who can create the most innovative protection systems, the most effective deterrence strategies, the most comprehensive security networks. She pulled up one final image. It showed the Concordia Prime Station surrounded by defensive systems from every major species, each one complementing the others, creating layers of protection that would make the station virtually impregnable. This is what we could build together, said. A galaxy where every world, every station, every ship is protected by the combined defensive genius of all our civilizations, where attacking anyone means facing not just their defenses, but the collective defensive capabilities of everyone. The representative spoke slowly. You're describing a galaxy that is too dangerous to invade. Yes, said. A galaxy where peace isn't enforced through threat of destruction, but through the simple reality that warfare has become impractical, where every species can focus on growth, exploration, and advancement instead of constantly preparing for the next conflict. She looked directly at each major delegation in turn. Humanity learned the hard way that the arms race leads nowhere good. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times before we figured out that being able to kill everyone doesn't make you safe. Being able to survive anything does. We're offering to share that lesson with the rest of the galaxy. The ambassador rose from her seat, her ancient voice carrying clearly. And if we refuse, If we see this as a human trick to weaken everyone else while you maintain your offensive capabilities. Met her gaze steadily. Then the arms race continues. You try to match our capabilities, we develop new ones. Everyone builds bigger weapons, better weapons, more sophisticated weapons. And eventually, maybe in 10 years or maybe in 1,000, someone uses something that ends everything. That's the alternative. She softened slightly. But we're betting on something else. We're betting that every species in this room is smart enough to recognize a no-win scenario when they see one. We're betting that you'll choose survival over dominance. We're betting that when given a path toward genuine security instead of mutually assured destruction, you'll take it. The room fell silent for a long moment. Finally, the director spoke. We need time to consider this, to consult with our governments, to analyze the implications. Of course, agreed. Take all the time you need. But while you're deliberating, I want to leave you with one final thought. She walked to the front of the stage, standing without any displays or technology, just one human addressing the gathered powers of the galaxy. 6 weeks ago, you all thought humanity was primitive and weak. Now you know we're the most comprehensively weaponized species in known space. That knowledge changes everything, doesn't it? You can't know it. You can't pretend we're not dangerous anymore. You'll always be aware that we can turn literally anything into a weapon against you. Smiled. But here's what we hope you also realize. We're telling you this not as a threat but as an invitation. We weaponize everything, yes, but we also know when not to use weapons. We could have kept our capabilities secret and surprised you in future conflicts. Instead, we chose transparency. We chose to say we're dangerous, so let's all agree to stop being dangerous to each other. She spread her hands. We're weaponizing peace itself. We're turning defense into an art form. We're making security a competition rather than destruction. And we're inviting all of you to join us in building a galaxy where the most advanced technology is used not to kill, but to protect. The session ended. The delegates filed out slowly, their minds clearly racing with possibilities and implications. In the corridors outside, conversations buzzed with terms that had never been paired before: defensive innovation, creative protection, security competition, weaponized peace. Ambassador remained on the stage looking out at the empty hall. Her aide approached quietly. Do you think they'll accept? Considered. They will eventually, because the alternative is unthinkable and they're all smart enough to realize it. We've just shown them that the arms race is over, not because someone won, but because continuing would destroy everyone. And if they don't, smiled tiredly, then we'll have to demonstrate that we mean what we say, that we really can defend ourselves against anything they throw at us, and that we really won't use our offensive capabilities unless absolutely necessary. It'll take longer, but the outcome will be the same: peace through comprehensive mutual defense. She gathered her things and headed for the exit. Behind her, the great hall of Concordia Prime stood empty but somehow charged with potential. A new age was beginning, one where the galaxy's greatest minds would compete not to build better weapons, but to create better worlds. In